Before I begin, I feel it is necessary to point out that the news arm of the BBC has yet to retract, apologize, or otherwise address the deeply transphobic reporting it has engaged in the last few months. In a pinned comment down below, you'll find my original video on the topic, several videos from the YouTuber Sean, who has been ongoing in his pursuit of trying to get the BBC to own up to what they have done, and also a video from Laura Kate Dale showing the protests that have taken place outside of the BBC offices. While I don't feel any of the people behind Doctor Who are in any way responsible for this, I cannot in good conscience talk about a BBC-owned property without mentioning this first, until such time as it is properly redressed. Thank you. Well, it all starts with a fall. Yes, folks, Take Two Doctor Who review is back. I've been putting this off for a while. Basically, I needed a bit more distance from my initial viewings of, well, any of the Chris Chibnall, Jodie Whittaker era episodes before I felt like it was worth revisiting them. Basically, I had to give enough time where my initial gut reactions has time to wear off and I can look at it a little bit more fresh. And also that, enough time has passed that theoretically my thoughts may have changed and evolved. That was part of what was supposed to be the appeal of when I first started doing Take Who Doctor Who reviews. So I think enough time has passed that we can definitely do Series 11. Probably Series 12, we're definitely going to wait on Flux for a while there. But we can definitely get going on Series 11. And I'll be upfront. I have had a fair number of problems with most of this era. I have not absolutely detested it the way some people have, and the things that I don't like are not the things that the loudest portions of geekdom have been screaming about. But I have had some notable issues with the show, both small scale and little things that just felt careless or not well thought out, to some of the bigger moves that like that. But this isn't an overview right now, so we need to deal with this just one episode at a time. And we start, of course, with the woman who fell to Earth.
Ooh. Should be fine.
Now, my original impression of this was, I'm going to go with middling. I don't think I thought that badly of it at the time, although I wasn't blown away with it. I think at the time it issued me certain concerns that I had hoped for more. And to be fair, sort of the high benchmark for me of modern era Doctor Who the first episode of A New Doctor is 11th Hour. And 11th Hour is actually one of Matt Smith's best episodes, period. So my scale's kind of skewed. But I still remember how good that was first time I saw it, and I can't help thinking when something doesn't measure up to that. So part of it's that I can be a little harsh. But I'm going into this with the same mentality that I went into any episode or any series of Doctor Who that I overall didn't like. Because back when I started doing the Take Two Doctor Who reviews, I said that anytime I am watching something that I know I didn't like the first time, I'm looking for what works about it. And failing that, I'm looking to better understand what didn't work. Or maybe it's a little bit of both. And this time it's a little bit of both. There's actually some new things. They're not new problems, but they're things that I now see and make me go, oh. Because there are things in here that are indicative of what are going to become some recurring problems, again, for me, over the course of Chibnall's time as showrunner. And I'll point some of those out as I get there. But I would very much like to start with the positives. The show looks great. And I noted this at the time. The artistry of the cinematography, the direction, the integration of the effects work felt just better. I love Doctor Who, and it can look good at times, but it's always been shot pretty basically for the most part. And this felt, visually at least, more ambitious and had higher aspirations in terms of what it wanted to look and feel like from a visual aspect. And I think it did that very, very well. So props to that right off the bat. The performances in this episode are pretty solid. We'll get to Jodie Whittaker in a little bit, but I appreciate her performance here a bit more than I did originally. This is actually a little bit what happened to me with, say, Peter Capaldi, who is now my favorite Doctor, but I didn't take to him right off, partly because I was trying to wrap my head around what his deal was going to be. With Whittaker, honestly, even at this point, I still feel a little bit at arm's length with her Doctor. It reminds me a little bit of Peter Davison in that way, and that's part of the reason I'm not a huge fan of Peter Davison as the Fifth Doctor as well. So I guess I'm consistent about that. But her performance is solid. The delivery of the lines, the sort of turning on a dime on topics works well. And there are some specific moments that actually highlight her ability to commit and bring something to these lines quite well. Towards the end, her little speech about having lost family comes to mind.
I carry them with me. What they would have thought and said and done, make them a part of who I am.
I like that line, and I like the way that she delivers that line. This is our first introduction to Graham, Yaz, and Ryan, all of whom give about as solid a first introduction to companion as you're going to get without seriously zooming in on the companion, which something like, say, Rose or Smith and Jones did, or actually even 11th Hour did a bit. When they really zoom in on having you definitely get to know these companions, I could expect more. But new Doctor, 3 companions, story to tell. I'm not shocked we didn't get to know them in any more depth, but to the degree that we do get to know them, they are solidly portrayed here. A couple of more minor things that I really like. I love the weird electric tentacle thing. I love it. I love it for how weird it is. I remember, I think I said when I reviewed it the first time that it was kind of Lovecraftian, not in a literal, like taking that aesthetic sense, but in a, I don't even know what I'm looking at sense. Between the way it was designed and the way it was shot, especially when it shows up on that train in the first place, it was so weird and off-putting and I didn't get it, and I loved all of that about it. So again, another aspect of the visual presentation that really felt well developed and well thought out and was just good. I enjoy the montage of the Doctor making the new sonic screwdriver, and I'm also going to highlight the soundtrack there. I feel like I see a lot of people bemoan the loss of Murray Gold, and I definitely get if you're in favor of his more iconic kind of themes and the bombast that he tended to bring to it, that, yeah, you'd miss that because that's not what's going on now. But that bit of music while she's working on the new Sonic, it's really good. It's legit good, and it's worth highlighting. Because this has been an era where the music has been more background flavor and not something that is as prominent in terms of being upfront and really telling you what to do or think or what's going on. It's been a bit more atmosphere for the most part, but that's a good bit of music right there. I actually rather like Carl, the guy from the train who they later have to save off the crane. I like that we have this collection of people who have encountered this weird thing, and most of them are like going to side with the Doctor and be like, what do we do? And this one guy's like, I'm leaving. I'm going to go. And I like that the show doesn't feel like it's judging him for that. It's not portraying him as a coward. It's not portraying him as incurious or a loser. He's just like, this is too much and he can't deal with it. And I feel like the show and the framing of the show kind of respects that. So I like that he was there and had that perspective, and I like the show was respectful of it. But of course, all that having been said, there are some problems that I have with this. And as I said, some of them are indicative of stuff that is going to keep coming up. One of those is I have a hard time sometimes wrapping my head around what Jodie Whittaker's versions of the Doctor, what her morality is. Because, like, the Doctor needs a moral compass, like, always. And the general sense of that should be fairly consistent from regeneration to regeneration. But the specifics about what might get the Doctor onto their moral high horse, those can and probably should vary a bit. But there's a moment in this that just struck me as bizarre. This is towards the end. This is after Simja is basically defeated, and the Doctor tosses him his transport device so that he can teleport away. And Carl kicks Simja off the crane, and he zaps himself away, and he's fine. And the Doctor turns to Carl and says,
"You had no right to do that."
Excuse me? First of all, you effectively and indirectly just set off 5 bombs in the guy that were one apiece, was supposed to kill both you and all 4 of the other people that you've been tagging along with. So first of all, how did you even know that you weren't about to kill him when you did that to him? Second of all, the dude was fine. He had his transport thing. He beamed out. He was fine. Where are you to just turn to this guy who is scared and terrified and has just been through a harrowing experience and did something in the heat of the moment that maybe you would have had more legitimate issue with had Simja landed and died, but he didn't. Let the guy recoup. Don't just turn on him and go, you had no right to do that. And there's no follow-up on that. She just says it and we all move on. It's weird. It's a very strange moment. And the Doctor's moral compass is going to be one of the things I'm going to kind of have an eye out for, because it's something that I don't think I was properly examining at the time that these were originally airing, but is something that I've seen brought up in the discussion around the characterization of the 13th Doctor since then. Another example of something that is going to be a recurring issue is that, honestly, the episode's kind of cruel, needlessly cruel. And I've got a couple of examples of that. So, for starters, I grant that, first of all, Doctor Who tends to have a body count. So, don't mistake me for just complaining about the fact that people died. But circumstances matter. So, we have the guy who was hunting for, well, not really Simja specifically, but any Stenza. And he finds this one because he wants to find out what happened to his sister. Actually, stick a pin in that. As a general concept, we'll come back to it because that's kind of another thing. But I get that he's going to get killed. I get that. I don't really get what his plan was. I'll hold on to that. But he's going to get killed because we need to establish this new alien threat as a threat and show that he has no compunction about killing. That having been established now, what is the point of the salad man?
My salad.
And what is the point of the guard at the gate at the construction site? Because the salad man is just a complete non sequitur. We've already established that Simja has no compunction about killing anyone. Why do we have to have him kill this person? But even if I grant that one, where maybe you could have made the argument that Simja killed the original guy because he felt threatened by him, whereas this guy was clearly no threat. Okay, maybe I give you the salad man. I still think that's a really clunky way to convey that, but okay, even if I give you that, what is the point of taking a character that you establish within the first 10 seconds of seeing him to be a loving, caring grandfather with a wonderful family back home?
Not every granddad's this lucky.
And then immediately kill him. There is no reason to do that. It makes no point about the character that kills him that has not already been made elsewhere, and it is needlessly knife twisting. It's going to come up again at least once, because very specifically in which one is it? The second of the Dalek New Year's things. It is going to happen again there, where a character is identified as being gay and then immediately killed. First of all, these characters dying serve absolutely no narrative purpose. And you establishing one theoretically sympathetic thing about them before killing them just makes it cruel. And it's kind of a similar thing with Grace. First of all, Grace is fantastic. I love her vibe. I love that Graham is right beside her being like, I don't know about this. And she's like, no, we need to help. I love her energy. I love her agency that she has. She wants to get in there and help. And it makes total sense for the background we know about her as a caregiver. It makes so much sense. I love Grace. There is no need to kill her. None. Even if you're going to make the argument that, well, we're not going to have her as a regular companion and she's got the personality that would go with the Doctor, like, okay, fine, except the entire first trip that she takes with the fam is an accident. All you had to do was have Grace get injured, so she was staying at home recuperating while they tried to help the Doctor get back to the TARDIS. You still have the same ending, which I also don't really like because it's a completely needless cliffhanger that I already know gets resolved incredibly anticlimactically and through utter sheer coincidence. But you did not need to kill Grace. There is zero need for that. Again, it feels cruel. And yes, I know Doctor Who can have a body count, but there's usually more context to it than this. You know, we'll see lots of people in a situation where they are fighting or running from aliens get mowed down. And is that possibly needless? Yeah, in some cases it might be, but it's the fact that this episode and other moments during Chibnall's run that he writes the time to give us a reason to empathize with these characters and then kills them. Now, he's not the only one to do this. Moffat did it too, specifically in Good Man Goes to War, where we establish this couple that are kind of cute and then turn one of them into a headless monk by taking his freaking head off. So, like, Chibnall's not alone in doing that, but it felt more like an outlier when it happened under other writers, at least to my memory. Correct me if I'm wrong about that, but it's something that is right off the bat in the first episode of Chibnall's era, and I know it's going to come up again. If anything good came out of Grace's death, it is the funeral scene and the speech from Graham, which is very nice. It's wonderfully heartfelt, and it did choke me up a little bit. So that is well delivered. I still don't think it's worth it for the loss of the character.
What are you complaining about? I'm complaining because I wanted more.
Now, I said we'd circle back to the guy who's trying to find out what happened to his sister. That also feels indicative of some stuff that's going to go on later. Specifically, it reminded me of Flux in that it is an element that needs way more explanation than it gets to make sense, especially at the point at which it becomes relevant. Because we have this guy who is, who finds the pod that looks like a freaking onion, and he takes it back to his place and he is filming it. He has some kind of intention for it. We don't know what it is. So in addition to not knowing what the friggin' onion thing is, not knowing what the tentacle ball is, not knowing exactly where the Doctor's at in terms of figuring out herself to be able to be helpful, and we're still trying to sort all that stuff out, you now throw in a completely new character with a motivation we will only ever barely understand. And by the time you explain what his motivation was and what his deal is, he's already dead. So what does it matter? It feels reverse engineered. It feels like they decided we want to have a camera on the onion and to have somebody record a video explanation of part of what's going on. And then built a backstory for this character who doesn't, he's both over and underdeveloped. His backstory is too complicated for how much he actually matters to the story, so there's an overdevelopment. But because his backstory is overdeveloped, he is underdeveloped in his actual on-screen time because we find out about all this after he's freaking dead. And again, it reminds me a bit of Flux, that kind of cramming something in where we're already dealing with so much stuff and you're going to throw in this one other thing that isn't going to make sense until later. And then by the time you find out, it's like, well, why did that even need to really be there in that way? So things like that, which didn't necessarily irk me the first viewing, now look like early warning signs for a lot of stuff that's going to bother me later on. A few other quick things to note. I'm going to be keeping an eye, in addition on the Doctor's sort of moral compass, I'm also going to be keeping an eye on Ryan's dyspraxia, because another thing that I saw brought up was how inconsistent the show was in depicting that. I will say here in its introduction, I think it's well handled. His frustration with it, the ways in which it affects his life and his relationships. And I really like that after the funeral, Grace's funeral, he goes back up to the hill and he starts trying again, and he keeps falling because the terrible cheesy thing to do would have been suddenly he can do it, which that's nonsense. But I like that instead it's about him taking her lesson about always getting back on and trying again. So that was good. I do, like, nitpick thing, I do really wonder, like, why were you trying to teach him how to ride a bike on a uneven bit of grass? Like, I taught my kid how to ride a bike for the first time a couple years ago. And you do it on pavement, you do it on something even so that they can get a proper sense of how to just balance the bike without having to contend with uneven ground. I mean, I suppose the reason to do it is we get some very pretty shots up on that hill. So again, visually very nice, but like, what? Why would you try and teach someone to ride a bike there? Especially when it's so far away from your house that it requires a train ride. What? Oh, the one other thing I meant to mention about the brother guy, like, so he spent years trying to, like, find the signal again, track these aliens down. He believes that they did something horrible to his sister, and his plan is a video camera and a crowbar. Like, you figured out what signal patterns to look for to get this thing, but you didn't think to have any better precautions than a crowbar? Again, it feels reverse engineered. He's not going to live anyway, so there's no point in giving him a better plan than that, because he's just going to get killed regardless. It feels like a narrative function, not a actually developed plot thread. A couple of other little things. I don't love the sheer bloody coincidence of the Doctor just happening to drop out of the TARDIS into this exact spot. Like, it would have been one thing if, and I'll watch for it, but I don't think it ever does, if later it got established that the TARDIS dropped her there on purpose because it knew she was needed there, I'd buy that, but I'm pretty sure it is just absolute sheer bloody coincidence that she falls out of the sky into this train where this stuff's going down. And I don't like that level of coincidence, and it doesn't help that it's about to be repeated next freaking episode with their rescue from space, but we'll deal with that when we get there. Jodie's lines are a little bit of a mixed bag because I feel like, and I'll keep an eye out for this as well, I feel like she's given more just sort of lines for flavor here than she is often later on. It felt to me oftentimes with Jodie Whittaker as she went along playing the Doctor that she got saddled with so much of the exposition that she rarely got the chance just to have a line for character or flavor or just to have fun. And it always felt like every line she said had to convey some kind of information. Here she gets a little bit more in terms of flavor lines than I feel like she has later. And when she gets those, she delivers them quite well.
This could be a potential crime. Why are you calling me madam?
Because you're a woman?
Am I? Does it suit me?
Everything from the half an hour ago I used to be a white-haired Scotsman to the one I already mentioned, talking about lost family, to even the line where she kind of reads Yaz and like, yeah, but what are you going to do? Call your superiors and tell them what? Which is a little bit of an exposition line in terms of covering why Yaz isn't going to tell her superiors, but like it is the Doctor reading her and getting a sense of her as a person. But then we've got the other lines that go on that are just flat out explaining what's going on and sometimes pointing out things that would have been better left unsaid, like this.
Come on, Ryan. Come on, Yaz. I'm calling you Yaz because we're friends now.
Trust your audience to have caught the fact that Yaz said that she's Yaz to her friends and that the Doctor just starts calling her that. Trust us to catch it, please. So it's a mixed start. And I feel like I have a better appreciation of what is good in this than I had the first time I watched it, but at the same time, I'm not sure that's actually improved my opinion of it because now I'm spotting things that I know are going to be recurrent issues later on as it goes along, and that's something that I didn't have on first viewing. But we'll see how this keeps going. The Woman Who Fell to Earth. What are your thoughts on it? What do you like about it? What doesn't work about it? Be respectful. I know some people have very heated opinions about this era, but like just be respectful of everybody. Me, each other, the creators. All right? Drop your thoughts down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon is how I am able to pay the bills and keep this entire operation up and running. Any amount is of great assistance, and there's perks for every tier, but there's other ways to help me. You can check me out on other social medias as well. See ways to support me there if you like, or just the like, share, and subscribe. They help me out as well, and so I appreciate that. Don't worry too much about it, though, because at the end of the day, you are the council. I'm just running the meetings, and until next time, this council is adjourned. It's the end credits. Means I gotta shout out some patrons. This month, it is Turok, Oliver B., Linda Walters, TT, Robin Powell, Frenobulax, The Poodle, Eidolon, Tracy Scrabbit, Dharma, Michael Doyle, Vincent Paul Bartolucci, Angry Casperl, Adam Lefty Taylor, Robin Moore, Shayla Gourlay, and Bookworm. Thanks so much for your support.